Chapter 1. Efring Talent Death's Roll Call. Welcome to the world of the supernatural. This is a cursed world, and you will integrate into it as a player. Remember, humans are at the bottom of the food chain in this world, the most delicious food for the supernatural. To survive, please strive to complete tasks and gain their favor. Hint, there is no death in this world. Once eliminated, you will fall into an even more terrifying instance, facing more despairing trials. Initial instance matched. Scarlet apartment. Inside the room, it was like a drop of ink in a bowl of clear water, dark and lightless. Ethan Cole opened his eyes. His brain crashed at that moment. Having bought many scratch-offs, he had never won more than 20 yuan. Instead, he had hit the jackpot on a probability of 1 in 10 million. This was probably what they called a chosen one. Ethan Cole's smile held a hint of bitterness. At this moment, a virtual game panel popped up in his vision. After dawn, the supernatural will awaken. Please quickly familiarize yourself with your surroundings and learn about the supernatural. This will increase your chances of survival. There are a total of 3 players and 3 supernatural entities in room 404. Each interaction with a supernatural entity will trigger different tasks. Players who fail to complete them will face varying degrees of punishment. Hesitation only leads to defeat. Instead of crying in despair, it was better to quickly pull himself together and figure out how to survive. Ethan Cole patted his face, surveyed the simple room, and then walked out. Soon, he found 2 other people in the living room, clearly the other 2 players. They were eating gooey food at the dining table. Although it looked disgusting, they ate quickly, not even chewing, only swallowing. This way of eating was purely to fill their stomachs. The female player, Leela Carter, paused slightly when she saw Ethan Cole. The male player, Lucas Hayes, didn't even look up, still engrossed in his bitter meal. Oh, this is new. How long has it been since we had a new player in our little cottage? The girl with twin pigtails and a delicate face looked at Ethan Cole with surprise. The boy tore off a piece of black, sticky meat and glanced at the female player. Why worry so much? It's not like newcomers haven't arrived before. Take this time to fill your stomach quickly. When those creepy things wake up, it'll be hard to even get a drink of water. Hearing this, the girl quickly bent her head and continued to eat voraciously. Ethan Cole walked over, looking at the food in the basin. The boy pulled the plate closer to him, guarding his food with a cold gaze. This is our food. You don't get any. If you want to eat, complete a task yourself. The boy had always had a bad impression of new players. These newcomers didn't understand any of the rules. If you helped them, they would become dependent, and when they encountered trouble, they would come looking for you, even implicating you. They were pure deadweight. I just want to get a general understanding of the rules of this instance. Ethan Cole was aware of his status as a new player. The 2 in front of him were clearly old players who had survived for some time. In this unfamiliar environment, he couldn't find any useful information. He could only try to get some from the old players. The boy snorted, saying nothing. Leela Carter, however, felt that if new players could be helped, they should be, and maybe they could even help her in the future. There was strength in numbers, after all. She briefly summarized. In this house, we all play the role of children. The other 3 supernatural entities play the roles of father, mother, and grandmother. If you want to live and get food in this house, you must unconditionally complete the tasks assigned by those 3 supernatural entities every day. Oh, let me introduce myself. I'm Leela Carter, and he's Lucas Hayes. As soon as his name was mentioned, Lucas Hayes became very displeased. He glanced over, sneering. Leela Carter, have you forgotten what happened when you helped the last new player? He stuck to you like glue afterward, and when he hit a mine, he wanted to drag you with him. Haven't you learned your lesson? He cursed internally, thinking this woman never learned. At the mention of the last new player, Leela Carter's pretty face turned unpleasant. She glanced at Ethan Cole, said nothing more, and continued to eat her last bit of food. Lucas Hayes suddenly remembered something and surprisingly spoke to Ethan Cole directly. Players all have a trait talent. Open your personal info panel and see what rank yours is. Trait talents were something every player had. It was a welfare mechanism for players, mainly divided into A, B, C, and D ranks. The higher the rank, the better the trait, and the more privileges the player enjoyed in the instance. Lucas Hayes didn't like new players. But if a new player awakened a good talent, it could be very useful in the instance, more popular than many old players. So, he added a word. Let's first see if this rookie had any value he could exploit. Leela Carter followed up. Yes, for example, my talent is C rank, called Natural Charm, which is a passive talent. In any instance, my face will be more favored by the supernatural than other players. To put it plainly, my favorability will be 5% higher than that of ordinary players. Don't underestimate this 5% chance. Once, in a task, another player and I stepped on a mine at the same time. That supernatural entity wanted to grab one of us as punishment. In the end, because I was more likable, the other one was unlucky. As Leela Carter spoke, there was a hint of pride on her pretty face. Lucas Hayes grumbled. It's quite ironic that even in the supernatural world, looks matter. Ethan Cole opened his information panel. Ignoring the basic status bars at the top, his gaze fell on the trait talent section at the bottom, where a glaring F caught his eye. F? Ethan Cole was stunned. Damn it, didn't they say the lowest was D rank? How did you get an F? Even the two old players were stunned to hear of an F-rank talent. D-rank talents were so weak they were almost useless. For example, someone's D-rank talent, blazing speed, allowed for instantaneous movement in the instance. At first glance, it sounded incredible, but in reality, it only allowed for a 2-centimeter teleport, making it practically useless. There was an even more absurd D-rank talent, no trace, which allowed for invisibility in the instance. But the moment you approached a player or a supernatural entity, the invisibility effect would immediately wear off. These trait talents superficially sounded good, but as long as they were labeled D-rank, they would be epically nerfed. D-rank, a literal sewer, was already abstract enough. One couldn't imagine how terrible an F-rank would be. Lucas Hayes immediately frowned, losing what little patience he had left. He didn't want any more involvement with such an unlucky person. An F-rank talent might even bring bad luck to nearby players. Let him fend for himself. Leela Carter's eyes also held pity, but she wasn't as complicated. She instinctively offered comfort. Don't be discouraged. It's better than nothing. What truly matters is the player's own ability. Ethan Cole thought to himself, was he cursed with bad luck? He reluctantly clicked on the talent details. Talent, passive F-rank. Name, full disclosure. Details. By making eye contact, you can glimpse the underwear of all supernatural entities and players. Ethan Cole's eyes went dark. All right. This talent was indeed absurd. But then, a notification sound rang in his mind. Ding! Player has successfully awakened talent, rank F due to a bug. This is a discarded talent. Due to bug activation, your talent has been remodified. Talent name. Omniscience. Talent details. Triggered by touching the supernatural entity's personal items, can obtain all hidden information about the supernatural entity. A few simple prompts, yet Ethan Cole's eyes became vacant. So that's what F-rank meant all along. But this talent, which had a bug and was discarded, how was it awakened by him? He didn't understand. But now, Ethan Cole didn't have the time to think so much. A simple talent description made him clearly understand how valuable this talent was. He could peek into all the hidden information of the supernatural entities. This meant he didn't have to risk his life, like other players, to painstakingly gather a little information for game strategies. He only needed to touch something with his finger, and he could thoroughly uncover the whole story of every supernatural entity. Ethan Cole didn't reveal the talent's bug. A trump card should be hidden as much as possible. Showing off, aside from satisfying a personal desire, brought no benefit. A flower blooming vividly, though eye-catching, withers quickly once picked. At this moment, the mottled grandfather clock chimed again, ringing exactly 6 times. 6 in the morning meant it was dawn. The supernatural entities had woken up. The previous second, Lucas Hayes and Leela Carter were still eating. The next second, like soldiers hearing a bugle call for assembly, they quickly cleaned up the trash on the dining table and rushed into the dormitory hallway. When Ethan Cole followed them, he heard several strange door noises. The sound was strange because it was like something sharp scratching on a door, very grating. As Ethan Cole smelled a foul odor of decay in the air, a hoarse voice, like a torn vocal cord, slowly drifted from the dark hallway. "Are there any new children today? Come quickly to Father's room. Let Father see how your body is." Ethan Cole's mouth twitched. No way. The first thing it said after waking up was to specifically ask for him. Chapter 2. Hidden information, succubus task. Upon hearing Scarlet Entity's voice, Lucas Hayes and Leela Carter's hearts sank. Then, they looked at Ethan Cole with an aura of misfortune. This newcomer not only got a poop-tier F-rank talent, but at the very start of the game, he was directly singled out by Scarlet Entity, the supernatural entity with the most minefields and the highest death rate. How unlucky could he be? Lucas Hayes even suspected if the F-rank talent came with an inherent bad luck attribute. Ethan Cole's expression wasn't good either. According to Leela Carter's introduction, the house had a layout of 6 rooms and a living room, with 3 rooms for the supernatural entities and 3 for the players. Among them, the mother was the least dangerous. She was unusually fond of children, so there was no need to worry about worsening relationships. However, due to her excessively distorted affection, troublesome and dangerous tasks often arose. Next was the grandmother. Perhaps due to Leela Carter's talent, she favored Leela Carter alone and had no affection for male players. Scarlet Entity was the most dangerous. He was irritable, eccentric, and particularly disliked, even deliberately targeted, his own children, finding fault in everything. Previously, most players had fallen to Scarlet Entity. Under the funerary gaze of Lucas Hayes and Leela Carter, Ethan Cole braced himself and walked into the dim hallway. The door slowly pushed open, and the flickering chandelier in the dormitory emitted a dim orange light. As soon as Ethan Cole stepped in, the door behind him closed tightly. A strong smell of blood filled the room. In Ethan Cole's vision, he clearly saw a large number of bloody fragments scattered on the floor. A grotesque figure, covered in steel nails, with skin and flesh inflated like popcorn from excessive hormones, and covered in terrifying, disgusting tumors, was grinning and staring at Ethan Cole. It held a skull, still covered with many fragments of flesh, and asked Ethan Cole with a smile, "Do you know who this is?" Staring at the maggots crawling in the eye sockets, Ethan Cole paused for a moment, then calmly said, "My brother or sister, I suppose." Scarlet Entity seemed surprised and threw the skull into Ethan Cole's arms. "Quite smart. There are many more of your brothers and sisters here. Do you want to see them?" He stood up, his massive body like a black bear, oppressive and dangerous, and opened a cabinet. Inside the cabinet, more than a dozen skulls were piled up, their flesh completely cleaned off, crawling with flies and maggots. The scene was very impactful. "Do you know why they all stayed here?" Facing Scarlet Entity's playful gaze, Ethan Cole whispered, "They made you angry, Father. So, you know I have a bad temper. I don't like disobedient, incompetent, and clumsy children. Like you, I've been calling you for so long. Why are you only coming in now? I'll take one of your ears, and you'll learn your lesson next time." Scarlet Entity's face instantly became hideous and terrifying. His large hand reached out to grasp Ethan Cole's small body. Ethan Cole's mouth twitched. No way. Is it that outrageous? Just being a little slow to enter the room also counted as stepping on a minefield. How were players supposed to survive this? He instinctively wanted to retreat, but the next second, Ethan Cole stared at the skull in his hand, and his eyes glinted. He quickly composed himself and allowed the large hand to grasp him. In the end, the large hand did not harm Ethan Cole, withdrawing awkwardly. Seeing no effect from the intimidation, Scarlet Entity's narrowed eyes grew somewhat sinister. A hoarse laugh escaped his scarlet lips. Just kidding, why no reaction? Scared silly. If Ethan Cole had dodged or showed panic just now, Scarlet Entity would have truly torn off one of his ears. Ethan Cole didn't respond, his eyes fixed on the bloody skull in his hand. A red panel popped up on it. Ding! Congratulations, player. You have touched an item and triggered the Omniscience talent, gaining hidden information. Supernatural type, Nightmare Eater. Ability. Likes to use intimidation to generate fear in players, feeding on it. The more fear eaten, the more the player's mental awareness and physical functions rapidly decline. Fatal weakness. A resentful dagger that wounded it in its former life. Could this be a bug-level talent? Just with one related item, it could uncover all the details of the supernatural entity, its abilities, and even its weaknesses. Ethan Cole's eyes flickered. He had thought this talent was powerful, but he hadn't expected it to be asterisk this powerful. However, where would this so-called resentful dagger be? If he could get his hands on it, it would at least be another life-saving trump card. Ethan Cole didn't think much about it. The priority now was to leave the room alive. My leg has been hurting terribly lately. You need to find a medicine called blood pipa. Bring it to the room before dark. If I don't get the medicine, I'll use you to relieve the pain. Useless children don't deserve to stay in this house. Under the light of the tungsten filament bulb, the Nightmare Eater tore open its trouser leg, revealing a swollen leg with festering flesh and pieces of milky white-brownish fat falling off. Utterly disgusting. Ethan Cole had no idea what a blood pipa was, but a quick thought would tell him that it couldn't be that simple. Understood, father. Ethan Cole nodded. Upon receiving the reply, the door behind him opened a crack, allowing Ethan Cole to leave the room. Ding, congratulations, player. You have successfully accepted the task. Find the item blood pipa and deliver it to Scarlet Entity's bedroom before 18:00. Task success, C-rank reward. Task failure. You will undergo a 30-minute task punishment from Scarlet Entity, with no life-threatening danger. Hearing the punishment, Ethan Cole frowned. Although it stated the punishment wouldn't be life-threatening, many other punishments could be more painful than death. To say he wasn't stressed would be a lie. No sooner had he stepped out than the doors to the mother's and grandmother's rooms opened, and Lucas Hayes and Leela Carter emerged. They both looked surprised when they saw Ethan Cole. You came out so quickly. Did you lose any body parts? Ethan Cole countered. Why would I lose any body parts? Leela Carter's pretty face showed astonishment. How did you do it? The first time Lucas Hayes entered Scarlet Entity's room, he had a kidney removed. At these words, Lucas Hayes's face instantly darkened. Leela Carter, some things don't need to be brought up. Leela Carter didn't mind Lucas Hayes's gaze and continued speaking to herself. That Scarlet Entity likes to torment and intimidate players, but actually, there's a hidden rule in this apartment that restrains the supernatural entities. The supernatural entities can't wantonly harm players. They can only punish players by failing assigned tasks. So, mental resilience is key. Ethan Cole nodded. Thanks. At the mention of the task, Lucas Hayes's face darkened. Damn it, what's gotten into that old hag today? She said her dentures broke and wants me to get her a new pair. Task classified as A rank. A rank missions have a death rate as high as 50%, because the item, dentures, can only be found on the 5th floor. And in this apartment, the higher the floor, the more terrifying the occupants. Lucas Hayes, who had been slacking off for days, hit the jackpot today when Ethan Cole arrived. He even wondered if this damned newcomer's bad luck had spread to him. I'm fine. The mother has always favored me quite a bit. She just asked me to go downstairs and borrow a bottle of soy sauce. The system has assigned it as a C-rank task. Leela Carter said, looking at Ethan Cole. What about you? What task did you get? Ethan Cole rubbed his nose. I'm fine too, C-rank task. That entity asked me to find a medicine called blood pipa to treat its leg. But upon hearing blood pipa, Ethan Cole noticed both of their expressions turn strange. Blood pipa. Heth, I knew it. That entity assigned this task again. You hit the jackpot. Lucas Hayes laughed as he left, but his laughter sounded like schadenfreude. Ethan Cole frowned slightly. Is this blood pipa hard to find? Leela Carter sighed slightly. The blood pipa isn't hard to find. We all know where it is, room 101 of the apartment. But before you, 4 players were assigned this task, and only one came back alive. The only one who returned looked decades older, completely devoid of flesh and blood, and died after saying only a couple of words. Leela Carter's eyes held pity. So, I advise you to try and find another way out. Room 101 is a man-eating monster. Ethan Cole. Chapter 3. Task Start, the Supernatural Beyond the Door. Ethan Cole guessed it wouldn't be that simple. But hearing Leela Carter's words, his face still looked a bit ugly. What kind of creepy thing lived in room 101? Good luck. Hope to see you at dinner tonight. Leela Carter had also never seen such an unlucky newcomer. Leaving behind a pale and futile encouragement, she also left the house, rushing to complete her own task. As fellow players, a kind reminder was the least she could do. To find a way out, he still had to rely on himself. Ethan Cole pondered for a moment, then turned and left the house. Regardless, room 101 still needed to be explored. He couldn't be scared off by just a few words. Following the location Leela Carter mentioned, Ethan Cole quickly walked through the filthy corridor and soon reached the first floor of the apartment. At the door of room 101, 2 other players had been waiting for a long time. There's a new guy. The tank-top man, various players, scanned Ethan Cole coming out of the corridor, a bit surprised. Cleanly dressed, clear eyes, definitely a new guy. Another middle-parted man crossed his arms, yawning. Ethan Cole was speechless. After noticing Ethan Cole was a newcomer, the tank-top man and the middle-parted man exchanged glances in understanding. They both knew. Such a naive newcomer was easy to fool. Using new players to step on minefields in the apartment was already an unwritten rule among old players. Newcomer, I've dealt with the resident of 101 a few times. If you want to live, listen to me. I'm happy to help a newcomer, the tank-top man proactively said. Then I'll leave it to you. Ethan Cole nodded calmly. He wasn't blind. He naturally caught the exchange of glances between the two. In a world of supernatural entities, everyone fought for survival. Who had the leisure to help others for no reason? Even Leela Carter's words, Ethan Cole didn't fully believe. Moreover, looking at their lax demeanor, they didn't seem to know how dangerous room 101 was. Ethan Cole's eyes flickered. With the advantage of information disparity, he might be able to use these two to gauge how deep the water was inside the room. The 3 at the door had not yet entered, but they already harbored their own ulterior motives. Creak. The door of 101 slowly opened at this moment, and a man's head poked out, staring at the 3 of them with empty, lifeless eyes. We're here too. The tank-top man stepped forward, just about to state their purpose, when he was interrupted by the other party. To do the task, I know. Come in, you're in line. With that, the man in white stepped aside and opened the door. Looking at the dark interior of the house, like an abyss, the tank-top man and the 2 others exchanged glances, then bravely walked in. But when Ethan Cole, the last one, stepped into the house, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his waist. Looking down, he saw he had been injected with a needle. Watching the man in white expressionlessly pull out the syringe, Ethan Cole wanted to say something, but what followed was a dizzying faint. After an unknown period of time, Ethan Cole shivered from the biting cold. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a dark room. Calling it a room was more like a cold, iron prison, gloomy and damp. Chains, shackles. The iron table was covered with gruesome, torture implements. Ethan Cole tried to move, but found his hands and feet chained. He turned his head and saw that the other 2 players who came with him had received the same treatment. And the man in white who had opened the door was now sitting on the dirty floor. He was eating sticky gruel from a bowl while staring at them with a creepy gaze. What's going on? We are residents. You are disrupting the apartment rules. Do you know the consequences? Release these damn shackles quickly. The tank-top man and the middle-parted man tugged at the chains, shouting at the man in white. Even these 2 experienced players were bewildered. It was their first time encountering such an odd task start. As soon as they entered, they were injected. As soon as they woke up, they were already handcuffed. What kind of game was this? The man in white said nothing, simply ate his food while quietly watching the tank-top man and the middle-parted man scream. Only Ethan Cole remained silent, quickly assessing his surroundings. In several corners, he saw several shriveled skin dolls. No, those weren't skin dolls, they were corpses. They had been drained of blood and flesh, leaving only a layer of skin wrapped around bones, looking light and airy. Clearly, these were previous players. This made Ethan Cole's face slightly grim. This was exactly what Leela Carter had said. When the tank-top man and the middle-parted man had yelled enough, the man in white stopped eating and asked, "Are you done talking?" The tank-top man and the middle-parted man wanted to speak again, but the man in white suddenly stood up, pulled out a knuckle duster from his pocket, and put it on. Then, without warning, he smashed it onto the middle-parted man's head, again and again. The sharp points of the knuckle duster pierced the skull, and blood splattered. Bang, squish, bang, squish. Soon, it was a bloody mess, and the middle-parted man was completely offline. The man in white turned to the tank-top man and asked, "Can you be quiet now?" The tank-top man's face was pale, and he nodded. The man in white wiped the blood from his face and sneered, "That's it. You chicken out at the sight of a little blood." A little blood. Brains were gushing out. Ethan Cole stared at the man in white, thinking, was this guy the owner of room 101? But who knew that the next second the other party said, "Let me introduce myself. My name is Various Players, and I'm a player living in room 101. Both of them were stunned for a moment. This guy, who had just expressionlessly smashed someone's head with a knuckle duster after only a few words, was also a player. Noticing their surprised expressions, Various Players waved his hand, putting on a helpless face. "Don't look at me with such a perverted gaze. I'm just a poor working man, too. I killed him, firstly, to make you quiet. Secondly, that entity doesn't like skinny, unnutritious stuff. I need to filter out the inferior goods for it." Listening to those 2 incredibly bizarre reasons, the tank-top man subconsciously glanced at Ethan Cole, as if to say, "Isn't he just as skinny?" Various Players also looked at Ethan Cole. "He's quieter." Ethan Cole. To make a long story short, it's actually simple. See the room behind me. Go in, come out, and your task is done. The tank-top man had a look that said, "Are you kidding us like children?" Ethan Cole finally spoke. "It's easy to get in, but I'm afraid it won't be as easy to get out, will it?" Various Players didn't hide anything and pointed at the shriveled corpses in the corner. "If you can't get out, you'll end up like this. And don't worry, my job is to dispose of corpses. If you don't make it out, I'll try my best to bury you in a good spot. The entity inside, if you serve it well, you can not only leave alive, but also get the task items you want." As he spoke, the door behind him suddenly opened a crack. Various Players quickly got up and ran into the hallway. Outside the door, he put on a very eager smile. "Master, are you satisfied?" From the dark room, a seductive and languid voice drifted out. "Inferior goods. Continue to screen, and send them in until I am satisfied." Understood immediately. As he spoke, Various Players dragged another shriveled corpse from the room and carefully closed the door. Piling the shriveled corpse in the corner, various players turned to Ethan Cole and the tank top man and said, "Here, this is an example of someone who couldn't get out. And you're very unlucky. That entity's desire is unusually high today. 5 have already been sent in consecutively, and she's still not satisfied. All of you will have to go in next. Who's first? Damn it, what kind of crappy task is this? It's clearly a death trap. Let me leave, I'm quitting this task." By now, the tank top man finally realized how perverse this task was, and his emotions started to escalate. Give up. The moment you entered the door, the task was already confirmed. Once a task is confirmed, there's no turning back. Whatever happens to players during the task does not count as breaking apartment rules. Various players wiped the blood from his hands, a faint smile playing on his lips. It's not necessarily over. There have been successful cases before, though that guy was almost completely drained, but at least he left alive. Unlike the shouting and desperate fleeing of the tank top man, Ethan Cole asked in a low voice, "So, what kind of entity is inside?" "I don't know what kind it is. I only know that female entity has an endlessly deep desire every day. Men are not only her nutrients, but also her needs. Isn't that a succubus then?" The tank top man was dripping cold sweat. Various players gave a cold laugh. A succubus, a mere minion, only costs a kidney. The one inside, she sucks everything but the skin and bones. Chapter 4, How to Break the Stalemate, Reserve Food. Various players still wanted to chat for a couple more sentences. Suddenly, a cold, impatient voice echoed through the room. "Various players, you've been getting slower lately. I'm considering whether I should find someone to replace your position." Upon hearing this, various players, who had been laughing and talking just a second ago, instantly tensed up. "Master, I'm sorry. I'll send him in right away." With that, he immediately dragged the tank top man and sent him into the room. The tank top man struggled desperately like a sacrificial animal about to be slaughtered, but it was useless. He was finally thrown into the room by various players. After the door closed, silence fell. Various players walked over and said to Ethan Cole, "Don't blame me, we're all players. I want to live too. When I first entered this instance, I started living under the same roof as that entity. No one is more desperate than me." While chatting with Ethan Cole, various players began to gather the dried corpses onto a trolley, preparing to dispose of them. Ethan Cole, but you've still lived until now. He couldn't help but be curious. Various players was also a man. Why didn't that female entity attack him? Was it just because she needed someone to dispose of corpses that he was allowed to keep this position and live until now? Anyone could do that. It seemed a bit far-fetched. This various players might know some ways to deal with that female entity. Perhaps he could find useful clues. I know what you're thinking. Various players saw through Ethan Cole's thoughts at a glance and waved his hand. Don't fantasize. Living with that insatiably hungry female entity, me being alive until now, is purely due to dumb luck, no strategy involved. Ethan Cole was puzzled. Dumb luck. Various players suddenly smiled, and that smile was strangely proud. My talent is the most useless D rank. It has no special privileges in this instance, but it's particularly effective against that female entity and even saved my life. This talent trait is special skill. We're both men, so I don't need to explain further, right? Although my combat power is lacking, my hardware is superior to any other player. Do you understand what 32 means? It can apply for a Guinness World Record. Because of this special skill of mine, that female entity couldn't bear to drain me dry. She gave me the job of corpse disposal, allowing me to survive until now. Although I have to dispose of corpses and screen players every day, it's already much better than many players in this apartment. These words made Ethan Cole fall silent. These trait talents truly were varied and bizarre. Special skill even made an appearance. Was this idiom explained that way? However, it's my first time seeing someone as calm as you. The others sent and usually pee themselves by now. Ethan Cole shook his head. Yelling and screaming are meaningless. If I die, I'll just be sent to the next instance. This is my first day in this instance, and I haven't even laid the foundation. Dying would actually be no loss. Hey, you're pretty perceptive, aren't you? Don't worry, I'll handle your corpse gently later. Seeing Ethan Cole's defiant expression, various players was quite surprised, somewhat admiring him. Ethan Cole ignored the comment and looked at the various items on the tin table. What are those? Tools to serve that female entity. Don't be surprised, it's what you're thinking. When that female entity gets excited, she plays in such a perverse way that it'll shatter your worldview. In fact, without various players saying anything, Ethan Cole had already vaguely guessed after seeing the toys on the table. Whips, chains, and needles were considered normal. There were even knuckle dusters and electric batons, which made his eyelids twitch. Just thinking about it sent shivers down his spine. But at this moment, Ethan Cole saw hope in those tools. Are those used? Used on the previous unlucky ones. Didn't you see they're still wet? Various players was still wondering what Ethan Cole meant by that question. But the next second he saw Ethan Cole pulling the chain, picking up the tools with his hand, and examining them carefully. What are you doing? He was stunned for a moment. Observing. Various players choked. He watched Ethan Cole pick up one item after another. Not only did he caress them carefully, but his eyes also glowed. Even a hint of surprise appeared on his face. He shook his head and couldn't help but say, I thought that female entity was perverted enough, but I didn't expect to find one even more perverted here. Ethan Cole was indeed thrilled internally at this moment. On those items, he successfully triggered the omniscience talent. Lines of hidden information about that female entity were constantly being analyzed. Hidden information meant that there must be other ways to deal with that female entity. As Ethan Cole quickly browsed the acquired hidden information, his expression gradually became increasingly dramatic. Creak. Just then, the door at the end of the hallway opened again. Ended so quickly. Various players paused. It hadn't even been 5 minutes. He quickly put down the corpse in his hands and rushed towards the door. As he approached, a shriveled body was thrown out. It was the tank top man. At this moment, he was nothing but skin and bones, his skin covered in wrinkles, but he was still alive. His eyes were vacant, and he mumbled in a hoarse voice, "Leave me alone." Really. There's nothing left. At the same time, the female entity's voice, trembling, came from inside the room. Still far from enough. Keep sending them in. I want more nutrients. Various players' heart sank. What was wrong with this female entity today? She had already gone through 6, and not only was she not satisfied, but she was even greedier. He looked at Ethan Cole in the corner, the last one remaining, and even he started to feel endangered. Damn it, if this continues, will she spare even an old employee like me? Just then, Ethan Cole put down the tools in his hand and actively walked over. He said to various players, "Send me in." It was the first time various players had seen a non-coercive player, and he was a bit unaccustomed. You're so proactive, you're making me lose my touch. Are you really rushing to the next instance to die? Ethan Cole said, It's not necessarily a dead end. Just satisfy her needs right. Various players kicked the tank top man on the floor. Huh, didn't you see this big guy was sucked dry in less than 10 minutes? Where do you get your confidence from with your scrawny build? It's just that you guys aren't good enough. Me. 32 centimeters, and you say I'm not good enough. Ignoring various players' furious outburst, Ethan Cole pushed open the door and walked into the dark room. Through the vast amount of hidden information gathered from his talent about the female entity, he came up with a daring hypothesis. If this hypothesis was wrong, he might be cremated and scattered. But to survive, one had to be daring. He decided to take a gamble. Bang! The door closed and the room was dim. Various items were scattered throughout the room. One could even see some blood-stained ice picks and nail hammers. At first glance, it looked like a primary crime scene. Ethan Cole was surveying his surroundings when a sudden forceful impact sent him sprawling to the ground. A strange smell filled his nostrils, and a beautiful face appeared before him. How did such a worthless specimen get thrown in here? The female entity caressed Ethan Cole's body, her pretty face filled with dissatisfaction. And before Ethan Cole's eyes, with the intimate contact, more hidden information popped up. Succubus loves to consume the essence and flesh of men. Not only does it increase her demonic power, but by absorbing bone marrow, she can maintain her appearance. Men are their best beauty treatments. Congratulations. The succubus before you happens to be in a state of highest desire, yet remains unsatisfied and maddened. So, to survive, how will you break this deadlock? Looking at the teasing hidden information, Ethan Cole thought to himself, why was this F-rank talent becoming more and more anthropomorphic? A sharp pain spread across his body. The entity's sharp nails dug into his skin. The supernatural woman was extremely disdainful of Ethan Cole's small frame. Since there are no good ones left, let various players come in then. I'll just have to put up with him. Actually, I'm quite reluctant to use various players my food supply. The female entity sighed, her eyes filled with regret. Various players, who was eavesdropping outside the room, turned pale and felt as if his world had collapsed when he heard the supernatural woman's words. Damn it, as expected, she wasn't even sparing an old employee like me. What's gotten into this female entity today? Her desire is like a bottomless pit. Ethan Cole had one hand hidden behind him, but he suddenly spoke. If you don't try, how will you know I can't do it? You. I'm not worse than the one outside, and I also have a big treasure. Want to see it? Hearing this, the female entity's hazy gaze unconsciously shifted downwards. Oh, really? Why can't I see it? Who told you it's down there? It's up here. As the words fell, the female entity had just looked up when Ethan Cole's hidden hand shot out, tightly gripping a nail hammer, and fiercely smashed it onto the supernatural woman's flawless face. Instantly, blood splattered. Chapter 5. Acquiring the supernatural object, activating enchantment. Like ceramics, the female entity's cheek cracked, and the sharp end of the hammer pierced her face, embedding itself in her facial bone. Ethan Cole showed no hesitation, extracting the hammer and smashing it onto the female entity's face again and again. Blood quickly spread across the floor. The horrifying sounds made the scene look like a homicidal maniac, brutally massacring an innocent girl. He swung for a full 20 times before finally stopping. Drip! The hammer dripped warm blood. Ethan Cole gasped for breath, enduring the pain and numbness in his right hand. He looked at the fallen female entity, a tense expression on his face. He was tense, not worried about whether the supernatural woman was dead or not. The hammer in his hand was just an ordinary tool. For a supernatural entity, it wouldn't cause any actual damage. The hammer, supposedly a weapon, was actually a play prop for the female entity and her prey. Her broken, bloody head continuously emitted searing white smoke, and the supernatural entity slowly stood up, the terrifying wounds on her face visibly healing. Her eyes, unreadable, looked at Ethan Cole. Is that your big treasure? Ethan Cole nodded calmly. Yes. How does it feel? The female entity gently wiped the wounds on her face with her fingertips, like cracked porcelain, the cracks continuously emitting white smoke. Don't tell me, it's quite stimulating. This feeling, I surprisingly like it. But it's still far from enough. No sooner had the words left her mouth than the hammer was already thrown at the female entity's face. Smashing her entire slender body to the ground, Ethan Cole quickly picked up an electric saw from the table and pressed it onto the female entity. He raised and lowered the saw, the terrifying chainsaw sound mixed with the tearing of flesh, forming a spine-chilling symphony. He showed no mercy. From the hidden information obtained outside the room, Ethan Cole had already guessed. This female entity had a strong SM tendency, and she was the submissive one. Pain would make her unusually excited, stimulating her mental pleasure. And this was something the female entity herself hadn't discovered. She frequently enjoyed torture and extracting essence from prey. Over time, her mind gradually became numb, and she became increasingly unsatisfied. No matter how perverse her treatment of prey was, it was difficult to satisfy her. Until now, Ethan Cole's reverse operation of making her the prey had, instead, opened a new door for her. This move was very daring and involved an element of gambling. But at this moment, looking at the bloodied and tortured form, her cheeks flushed with ecstasy, Ethan Cole knew. He had bet correctly. Outside the room, various players, who was anxiously assuming he would soon be in battle, looked confused. He was listening at the door. He heard the horrific chainsaw sounds from inside the room, and the entity's exhilarating, risky screams, leading him to believe Ethan Cole was the one being tormented. He couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Too brutal. May this brother's next instance be free of succubi. Rest in peace. He was even somewhat grateful to Ethan Cole. If it weren't for him, he would be the one in the room right now. Listening to the incessant chainsaw noise, various players turned to find a larger container. He guessed that Ethan Cole probably wouldn't be able to be removed from the room in one piece, only picked up piece by piece. Inside the room, the bloody scene continued. Ethan Cole valiantly wielded the chainsaw, but in just 5 minutes the saw blades broke, the chain snapped, and the chainsaw was utterly destroyed. He frowned. So flimsy. Seeing the supernatural woman's flushed, hot, and still unsatisfied expression, Ethan Cole dared not delay. He quickly fumbled for scattered tools around him, using everything he could to serve her. He wasn't sure what tool he grabbed, but suddenly an information panel popped up in his vision. Ding! Congratulations, player, you have acquired the hidden supernatural object, Satan's execution tool, successfully triggering your talent. Rank: rare. Details: a perverted serial killer who claimed to be Satan once used it to execute 10 innocent women consecutively. Afterward, the killer disappeared, but the tool, stained with blood of sin, remained. Hidden information: accumulate 10 skull-crushing critical hits on a supernatural entity to fully activate the supernatural object, adding the cursed effect Soul Burn. Supernatural objects were equipment items players carried, coming in various types. Damage, defense, life-saving, support, and so on. Their rarity levels were classified as common, rare, cherished, legendary, epic. Some high-level supernatural objects were even more valuable than talents. Ethan Cole was stunned for a moment. This F-rank talent could even obtain hidden information about supernatural objects. He looked at the supernatural object in his hand, a nail hammer. Unlike other tools, this hammer felt extremely cold and eerie to hold. This was a killing tool that had taken 10 lives. It was hard to imagine how much resentment it had absorbed. Supernatural objects were capable of dealing real damage to supernatural entities. He worried whether using it would kill the female entity. Despite his worries, his hand movements did not falter. As the female entity was about to awaken from her trance, he swung his arm, putting all his strength into smashing it onto her bright red face. With that blow, half of her head shattered. From the massive shattered wound, thick white smoke billowed, and the female entity let out a painful shriek. Ethan Cole's heart skipped a beat. Just as he thought she was about to go berserk, her piercing shriek turned into a high-pitched cry of ecstatic pleasure. Ethan Cole's mouth twitched slightly. It seemed he had underestimated the female entity's perversion. His worries were unnecessary. Realizing that the supernatural object in his hand wouldn't kill her, and in fact was quite effective, Ethan Cole completely let loose, delivering blow after blow. If 10 skull-crushing blows could activate an enchanted attribute, then there was no one more suitable than the entity before him. This was simply the perfect punching bag for getting damage numbers. And so, after more than 10 minutes of bloody head smashing, The floor and corners were completely stained red. Ethan Cole, covered in blood and brain matter, leaned exhaustedly against the wall and sat down. The nail hammer in his hand, after being tempered, became glowing scarlet, successfully activating its enchantment effect. Ethan Cole's eyes lit up. Now, with a supernatural object in hand, he finally had some confidence in the instance. At least he wasn't a pushover anymore. As for the female entity, she stood up again, and Ethan Cole was numb to it. He had shattered her head 11 times in total, and the last time had the soul burn effect. Terrifying black flames directly incinerated half of her head. Any other supernatural entity would have been reduced to ashes. However, this supernatural entity, in the final enchanted critical hit, reached a certain mental climax, finding profound satisfaction. Ethan Cole even began to wonder if this supernatural entity was boss level in this instance. What normal supernatural entity would use a supernatural object as if it were a demand? Fortunately, after 11 consecutive skull-shattering blows, the succubus's fervent desire subsided. Shedding her tattered clothes, she put on a new set. Her beautiful face, devoid of its flush, was now covered in a layer of frost, making her seem like a different entity from a minute ago. Sitting on a chair, she crossed her proud, long legs and lit a slim cigarette, casually tossing a pouch over. "What's this?" "A little extra tip. Your service was excellent. I haven't had this much fun in a long time." The female entity exhaled smoke, speaking calmly. Ethan Cole's expression was strange. Why did he suddenly feel like he was selling himself? Chapter 6. Completing the mission, ingredients blow up. Under a strange sense of humiliation, Ethan Cole opened the bag, which contained some common rations. Bread, compressed biscuits, unknown jerky. Although they were all coarse grains. In a world of anomalies, this human food was already considered a luxury. With this quantity, Ethan Cole wouldn't have to worry about food and clothing for a week. "Speak, what do you want to borrow?" "Blood pipa." Upon hearing blood pipa, the phantom entity immediately understood. "You're the child of that dead drunkard at 404. "Yes, Scarlet Entity's leg hurts badly, so he sent me here to get some medicine." "Who told you that was medicine?" "That guy. Who loves drinking more than his life, always lusts after my liquor. I never expected him to resort to a trick like this." The phantom entity sneered, showing great disgust towards the gluttonous entity. Ethan Cole frowned in confusion. Why didn't he just say so directly? The task is mandatory, whether blood pipa is wine or medicine. Players must complete it. Why go through all this unnecessary trouble? The phantom entity rested her chin on her hand and chuckled. "To prevent you from having other thoughts. He never thought you'd come back alive. Because you were just a trade item from the beginning. I made a deal with that guy. As long as he sends a child over, I'll reward him with half a bottle of blood pipa." In other words, this is a single supply chain. Once 404 refreshes players, the gluttonous entity will use the task to lure them to 101, serving as provisions for the phantom entity. This ensures everyone gets what they need. And it doesn't break the apartment rules. Upon hearing this, Ethan Cole's expression subtly darkened. This was the real trap all along. The phantom entity tossed a soy sauce bottle-sized container over, and Ethan Cole quickly caught it. "According to the trade, it should only be half a bottle. But today I'm in a good mood, so I'll give you a full bottle so you can go back and complete your task." Ethan Cole stared at the liquid in the bottle, its reddish-black color making it appear very viscous. He couldn't help but wonder what kind of liquor this was, to make the gluttonous entity so greedy. If you're curious, you can sneak a taste, but whatever happens after you taste it, don't blame me. And you'll never guess what I used to brew this wine, Tilda. Hearing the phantom entity's slightly provocative voice, Ethan Cole shivered inexplicably. He didn't dare to imagine, nor was he interested in imagining, He just wanted to complete the task honestly. It would be best if the gluttonous entity got completely drunk. "Can I leave now?" Ethan Cole asked, afraid that the female entity might be too fascinated by him and forcibly keep him there, making him her permanent commodity. The phantom entity did want to. However, game tasks are mandatory, and entities as NPCs cannot control them. Breaching them would also result in punishment. "Go ahead. But I'm still quite curious. How did you discover I had this tendency?" Ethan Cole coughed twice. Forcing a lie. One doesn't need to state such things explicitly. Sometimes, a single glance is enough to tell. The phantom entity's smile became exceptionally radiant and charming upon hearing this. "You seemed quite honest. But who knew you played even more perversely than I do?" To survive, whether seen as a pure big boy or a sadistic pervert, Ethan Cole didn't care. It was all just playing a role. The door behind him slowly opened. And just as Ethan Cole turned around, the phantom entity's meaningful farewell reached him. "Little brother, we'll meet again next time." Ethan Cole didn't respond, thinking to himself that only a fool would meet again. He turned and retreated from the unsightly room. Seeing Ethan Cole flee, the phantom entity calmly extinguished her cigarette and raised her fare. "Long legs. You're stuck with that dead drunkard father. You can't escape. I've got you." The phantom entity licked her lips with lingering desire, gently stroking the healed wound on her face, her eyes glazed, slowly savoring the moment. The door opened, and various players who had been thinking of cleaning up after Ethan Cole hurried over with a cart. However, seeing Ethan Cole emerge, he was instantly dumbfounded. "Damn, are you human or a phantom?" Ethan Cole retorted, "Do I look like a phantom to you?" Looking at Ethan Cole's bloodstained clothes, various players stood rooted, his mind momentarily crashing. "You didn't, by any chance, get rid of that female entity, did you?" "No. That's not right. It's impossible. You must have found some loophole." He knew how terrifying that phantom entity was. If she could be killed, so many players wouldn't have met their demise by her hands. "Ethan Cole, before I went in, I said I'd satisfy that entity." As if to prove Ethan Cole's words, the phantom entity's voice came from inside the room. "Little Cheng, clean up the room." "I'm going to bed." Various players quickly responded. And now his gaze towards Ethan Cole had completely changed. Every time the phantom entity's desire receded, she would fall into a deep sleep. Often for several days, this period was various players' most peaceful time. "If there's nothing else, I'll be going." Ethan Cole, holding the blood pipa, turned to leave. But various players grabbed Ethan Cole. His eyes filled with admiration. "Brother, don't rush off. Can you tell me what hidden strategy you found?" "How about this? I'll trade you 3 days' worth of rations." "5 days. Let's sit down and talk slowly first." As a player fixed at 101, various players faced the phantom entity with constant apprehension every day. If he could find a way to subdue the phantom entity, it would solve all his problems for good. Ethan Cole, naturally, wouldn't reveal his hard-won method. Anything loses its novelty. The phantom entity might be someone he needs to deal with again next time, if he told various players. This guy would rely on it, and the new discovery of the phantom entity would quickly become numb, surely ineffective next time. This would cut off his own path. No strategy, just pure skill. "I told you. A good weapon isn't enough. You need enough firepower. Otherwise, a 32-centimeter gun is just for show." Leaving this remark, Ethan Cole turned and left, leaving behind various players with a comical expression, unsure whether he believed it or not. Exiting room 101, the task was finally completed. Ethan Cole let out a long sigh of relief. This deadly first game task was finally accomplished, albeit with twists and turns. Without lingering, he turned and hurried upstairs. Soon, he returned to 404. Leela Carter and Lucas Hayes hadn't returned yet. Ethan Cole walked directly into the gluttonous entity's room. "You damn brat. You haven't left yet." The gluttonous entity's face immediately darkened upon seeing Ethan Cole. He instinctively assumed Ethan Cole hadn't left the house. According to his private deal with the phantom entity, if Ethan Cole went to 101, he wouldn't come back alive. The only thing that would return to him would be the blood pipa sent by various players at the phantom entity's command. "Scarlet entity, I've got the medicine." Ethan Cole took off the blood pipa from his waist and placed it on the table. "What did you say?" The gluttonous entity first froze, staring at the bottle of vivid, dark red liquid. With just one glance, he confirmed it was the phantom entity's blood pipa. He looked at Ethan Cole's unharmed body in disbelief. Various conjectures surfacing in his mind. How did this kid come back alive? How did you get it? That sister was very accommodating. I told her Scarlet Entity's leg was rotting badly, preventing him from sleeping at night. She was very touched and just gave it to me. Listening to Ethan Cole's brazen fabrication, the gluttonous entity's face instantly darkened. That woman would be touched. He wouldn't believe that ridiculous talk even if he died. But upon seeing the blood pipa, the gluttonous entity's mind became completely consumed by it. So much so that he didn't even bother to wonder how Ethan Cole, a mere trade item, had survived. He twisted off the cork and greedily poured it into his mouth. Soon, Ethan Cole caught a whiff of an extremely unpleasant smell. The smell was intensely fishy. It smelled like wine, but not quite. Why was it so tempting to the gluttonous entity? "Get out. Don't be an eyesore here." The gluttonous entity's eyes began to drift, filled with intoxication, as he impatiently spat a remark at Ethan Cole. Even though Ethan Cole had obtained a full bottle of blood pipa, he still received no kindness. In his eyes, these players were merely there to serve him. They were more like slaves than children. If he wasn't happy, he'd just kill them and replace them. Ethan Cole said nothing, turning to exit the room. As he closed the door, he heard the gluttonous entity's voice, filled with both love and hate. "How did that woman brew the blood from down there? I've never tasted such wonderful wine in my life." Ethan Cole choked. He suddenly felt a chill down his spine. Damn it. So the raw material was menstrual blood. Things in this anomalous world really just get crazier and crazier. Chapter 7, Mission Complete. Raw materials exploding. As Ethan Cole emerged, a game broadcast sounded in his mind. "Ding, congratulations, player. You have successfully obtained blood pipa and completed a C-rank mission. Received mission reward, Sisorhan's mask. Grade, rare. Description: once a man named Edward, to avenge the girl he loved, wore this mask. Cutting off the face of each murderer and sewing it onto the mask. What an undying love, isn't it? Ability: using the anomalous object enhances sensory perception by 5%. Ding, talent triggered. Obtained hidden information about the anomalous object. Hidden operation: allow the mask to suck the user's blood, which has a hidden effect. The player can be replaced by the anomalous Sisorhan's killer identity. Mission summary: the player still hasn't gained Scarlet Entity's favorability. Please continue to work hard. Another hidden message triggered. Ethan Cole's eyes gleamed. This talent was simply too valuable. It was like a gun falling into different hands. Others could only use it as a fire poker. But he could fire all the bullets, turning it into a killing machine and utilizing its full value. Judging by this, even if Ethan Cole got low-level anomalous objects, could he indirectly upgrade them through his talent in another form? As for the rating, Ethan Cole didn't care. The gluttonous entity was a cold-blooded snake, even if you pleased him 10,000 times. he would still take it for granted. Ethan Cole wasn't aiming for his favor anyway. He took out the rewarded anomalous object from his inventory. It was a clown mask, unsettlingly stitched with bloody faces, giving one the sensation of looking at dead people, very eerie. How do I get the mask to absorb my blood? Ethan Cole hesitated for a moment. He poked his finger into the mouth of the mask. The next moment, he felt a sharp stab of pain. It was as if something sharp had pierced him, but when he pulled his finger out, blood oozed from the tip. Looking at the mask, it seemed to come alive. The human skin on it squirmed, like hideous, ghostly faces, wailing in pain. And at the edge of the mask, white bone spurs actually grew out. The entire mask seemed endowed with life. Eerie and bizarre. This should count as activated. Right. Ethan Cole was unsure. Just as he was about to try wearing it to see the effect, a surprised voice came from behind. Did you not leave? Or did you run back again? Ethan Cole turned and saw Lucas Hayes' mocking face. Lucas Hayes was about to make a couple of sarcastic remarks, but saw the human skin mask in Ethan Cole's hand, and his expression subtly froze. Ethan Cole expressionlessly put away the anomalous object, ignored Lucas Hayes, and turned towards the living room. Being repeatedly brushed off made Lucas Hayes frown, growing increasingly displeased. In the living room, Leela Carter had also returned. Why are you back? She saw Ethan Cole and similarly thought he had returned without completing the mission. Mission completed. What is there not to come back for? Ethan Cole sat down and took out the coarse grains he got from the phantom entity. The moment they saw the coarse grains, Leela Carter and Lucas Hayes both believed him. But room 101 was a notoriously deadly level. Only 3 hours had passed. How did he complete it? Tearing open the packaging of the compressed biscuit, Ethan Cole simply stated, I got lucky. That entity found me likable and gave me half a bottle of blood pipa. The two exchanged glances, unsure whether they believed him. But no matter what, Ethan Cole was still alive and kicking, eating food, which meant he had cleared the level. Upon hearing, got lucky, Lucas Hayes' entire face turned as ugly as if he had eaten a fly. Damn it, why didn't I get that kind of luck? His mission was to get a pair of dentures for the grandma entity. Following the mission guidance, he went to the 6th floor to look for them, but not only did he not find them, he was almost caught by the anomalous residents on the 6th floor and turned into a human specimen. In the end, the mission failed. The grandma entity became corrupted, and she plucked out one of Lucas Hayes' eyeballs as punishment. Ethan Cole hadn't even noticed. But this guy had become a cyclops. He even looked somewhat comical. Ethan Cole had no fondness for this guy, so he couldn't be bothered to listen to his complaints and continued eating his food. Leela Carter, having completed her task, also received her daily portion of food, but compared to what Ethan Cole had, it was naturally much more meager. Only Lucas Hayes was the most miserable. Not only did he not get his daily food, but he also worsened his relationship with the anomalous grandmother. The reason he had survived in cabin 404 until now was that he had gained a lot of favorability from the grandmother, which prevented the gluttonous entity, who played the father, from targeting him. Although the gluttonous entity's mission stages had the highest player death rate, among the 3 anomalous entities in the cabin, he was the weakest. Therefore, under the protection of the mother and grandmother anomalous entities, the gluttonous entity hadn't attacked Lucas Hayes and Leela Carter, but he continued to eye them covetously. Lucas Hayes, having lost an eye, already felt a strong sense of crisis. Without food, Lucas Hayes could only take out the food left from yesterday, perhaps due to the influence of the anomalous environment. The already sticky food was covered with a layer of black mold. After only 2 bites, Lucas Hayes threw up. Then he turned to look at the biscuits in Ethan Cole's hand, and the craving in his stomach protested violently. He coughed twice, and just as he was about to speak, Ethan Cole immediately interrupted. "Don't look anymore. You're an old player, so skilled. Why would you eye the coarse grains in my hand?" Ethan Cole looked back at him with the same gaze Lucas Hayes had given him that morning. Lucas Hayes's face darkened. Leela Carter, beside them, almost couldn't help but laugh. "Give me a biscuit."